They stopped calling it a colony long ago. Now, it was simply known as the Plague Moon. Orbiting a dying gas giant on the edge of charted space, Kepri Delta 9 had once been a thriving outpost. Miners, traders, families, life. Then the sickness came. No one knew where it started. No one knew how it spread. But within weeks, entire sectors fell silent. The infected didn't just weaken. They unraveled. Skin turning translucent. Veins glowing with sickly light. Minds slipping into fevered delirium before total collapse. The Galactic Council quarantined the moon immediately. Locked it down. Sealed all transport lanes. Declared it a Class Omega biohazard zone. Officially, everyone on that moon was already dead. Except they weren't. Inside the quarantine perimeter, millions were still alive. Still fighting. Still hoping. And in the center of it all was a single human. Her name was Mara Iqbal. Age, 29. Occupation, nurse. Not a scientist. Not a soldier. Not a specialist in alien pathogens. Just a nurse. She hadn't meant to stay. When the quarantine order hit, she was supposed to evacuate with the last medical transport. But there weren't enough seats. There never are. So she made a choice. Quiet. Simple. She gave her seat to a child. And stayed behind. That was 3 months ago. Now the hospital she worked in was barely holding together. Lights flickered constantly. Supplies ran thin. The air itself felt heavy with sickness. Every hallway echoed with coughing. Every room held someone fighting to breathe. And Mara kept moving. She worked 16-hour shifts that never really ended. Moved from patient to patient. Species to species. Learning as she went. Adapting. Improvising. Because the plague didn't care what you were. It infected everyone. And every species reacted differently. For the insectoid virections, it crystallized their exoskeletons from the inside. For the aquatic celathi, turned their blood toxic. For humans, it burned. Fever so intense it felt like your body was trying to melt itself apart. Mara had treated them all. Held their hands. Listened to their final words. Closed their eyes. She stopped counting deaths after the first 1,000. But she never stopped fighting. The doctors had given up hope weeks ago. The cure was impossible, they said. Too many variables. Too many species. Too little time. But Mara didn't think like that. She didn't see numbers. She saw people. And people could be saved. Even if it meant trying the impossible. It started with a pattern. Mara noticed something others missed. A child. A small Virexian girl. Barely holding on. Her condition should have worsened. All data predicted it. But it didn't. She stabilized. Barely. But enough to notice. Mara reviewed everything. Food intake. Air quality. Medication. Environment. Nothing made sense. Except one thing. The girl had been placed in a temporary ward. Next to a broken filtration unit. A unit that wasn't working properly. At least, not completely. Mara checked it herself. Pulled it apart. Studied the filters. And that's when she saw it. A mutation. Not in the disease. In the filter residue. Something in the air. Was reacting with the pathogen. Slowing it. Weakening it. It wasn't a cure. But it was something. Something no one else had noticed. Because no one else was looking that closely anymore. Mara didn't report it immediately. She tested it first. Quietly. Carefully. She adjusted airflow. Recreated the conditions. Exposed samples. Observed reactions. And for the first time since the outbreak began, the disease slowed. Not stopped. But slowed. Hope. Real hope. Mara worked non-stop. Mapping the reaction. Refining it. Adapting it for different species. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't perfect. But it worked. She brought it to the doctors. They hesitated. Questioned. Doubted. Until they saw the results. Within days, wards that had been death sentences stabilized. Patients stopped declining. Some even improved. The news spread like wildfire. Across the plague moon, they started calling her something else. Not nurse. Savior. Mara hated that word, because she knew the truth. She wasn't saving everyone. Not yet. The plague was evolving, adapting, fighting back, and time was running out. So she did something no one expected. She called the Galactic Council. Direct channel. Emergency override. They almost didn't answer. When they did, they expected a plea for extraction, for rescue. Instead, they got a demand. I have a treatment, Mara said, her voice steady despite exhaustion. I need resources, labs, support. Now. Silence. Then skepticism. You're a nurse, one counselor said carefully. This requires. People are dying, she cut in. And I found something your experts missed. Another pause. Then, interest. Because even the council had failed to solve this. Transmit your data. She did. Minutes passed. Then the tone changed. Completely. This is viable. Shock. Confusion. Respect. And for the first time, the quarantine shifted. Not lifted, but breached carefully. Ships arrived. Labs deployed. Resources flooded in. All built on one thing. A discovery made by a human nurse, who refused to give up. Weeks later, the first true cure was synthesized. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The plague began to die. Slowly, painfully, but inevitably. Delta 9. The plague moon lived. Millions survived. And across the galaxy, one truth spread. Not about fleets. Not about power. Not about advanced technology. But about a human. A nurse. Who stayed when others left. Who fought when others gave up. Who saw what others missed. And proved something the galaxy would never forget. That sometimes, saving the universe doesn't take a soldier. Takes someone willing to care, when no one else will. And in the quiet halls of a once dying moon, as patients finally slept without pain, Mara Iqbal sat alone for the first time in months. Exhausted, silent, not a savior, just a nurse who did her job and changed everything.